In this lesson, we're going to be talking about manipulating the Windows API, and we'll be using Metasploit to do that. The first thing I need to do is I need to actually exploit a system and get into one. So I am going to look for a particular exploit here. And now I'm going to use exploit Windows SMB MS08_067_ net API. And I'm going to set my R host to be 172.30.42.17. Now I'm going to just run exploit. So it's going to exploit the system. I ought to get a interpreter shell come back pretty quickly here once the exploit is completed. And then we can start doing what we need to do in order to manipulate the Windows API. We're going to do that through an interactive Ruby shell. So I'm going to run IRB, and now I can do a number of things through this interactive Ruby shell that allows me to get access to the Windows API. I could run, for example, client.railgun shell 32, and that's going to run functions out of the shell 32 DLL, and I want to see if user is an admin. So it's going to run that, and you can see that we got a return of true there. I could also do things like client.sys.config.sysinfo, and I could do client.sys.config.getUID, and I get the user ID. Now, since I'm in an interactive Ruby shell, what I can actually do is I can write programs. So I'm going to say interfaces equals client.net.config.interfaces, interfaces.each. So I'm going to iterate through all of the interfaces that we have found on the system here. As we go through the loop here, I'm going to put them into a variable that we call I. Now I'm going to put string i.pretty. So it's going to format it in a way that's readable. So you can see here above we've got all of the interfaces there. It's not in a particularly readable format. Now I'm going to put string, and now I type end. You can see what it did here was create a pretty print of the different interfaces that were on the system. So now I've got a well-formatted output of the different interfaces, and I've got IP addresses, and I've got information about what it is, as well as the MAC address. So you can see here we've got a pretty powerful ability to interact with the system in not only an interactive way, but a programmatic way as well. I could get access to different functions in the system DLLs, including the ability to throw up a message box on the system. Anything you could do with the different Windows APIs, you can do here through this interactive Ruby shell as well. So we can manipulate the Windows API and get access to it through this interactive Ruby environment, which gives us a lot of power and capability over what we can do with that system.